Guillermo del Toro has close to 20 unproduced screenplays sitting in his files at home. Most of them have little to no chance of ever being made, for reasons either legal, personal, or professional. One such project, lesser known than things like his abandoned superhero film Justice League Dark, or his ongoing horror epic At the Mountains of Madness, is a Faustian parable titled Mephisto's Bridge, a movie for which Del Toro did extensive design work over numerous years. It wound up serving as something of an incubator for ideas later incorporated into movies like Hellboy 2. Here's the story. Mephisto's Bridge started production around 1994. Del Toro, then a 28-year-old novice director, had just announced himself with the ornate and mournful vampire tale Kronos in 1993. The film attracted the attention of Universal Pictures. Young Del Toro was signed on to a new project, an adaptation of the novel Spanky by British writer Christopher Fowler, about an ambitious and greedy young man who sells his soul to a demon for wealth, success, and the love of a woman. Reportedly, Universal was so eager to work with him, they selected his name over several majors also in the running. Del Toro quickly completed a screenplay and began peppering his notebooks with early design work, some of which can be seen in the book Cabinet of Curiosities. Here, Del Toro summarizes his vision for the movie's story and concepts. The main character, revealed in other sources to be a billboard designer, believes he deserves to have all of his dreams come true. He makes a deal with a demon named Spanky, the cost being his body rather than his soul, which Spanky will use to live another century. The billboard designer gets everything he wished for, except it doesn't make him happy. Because he earned nothing himself, his life remains empty of meaning. Del Toro imagined Spanky as a being made of many conjoined pieces and parts, with a squirming, squishing skin texture that would be constantly in motion, almost as if his body were itself a separate living creature. Calling it one of his favorite designs ever, the director goes on to explain that Spanky also had a second form, something like an archangel, with large wings. Each feather of these wings would have been shown to possess either an eye or a mouth, all of them representing the countless souls claimed by the demon. Mephisto's Bridge was at one point going to be Del Toro's follow-up to Kronos, but after the project ran into delays, he was forced to move on to other productions. He continued tinkering with the ideas for the next several years. After the release of his studio-produced film Mimic in 1997, the director was reported to have signed on with Phoenix Pictures to make Mephisto, with Martin Scorsese listed as an executive producer. Already, Del Toro claims he had been carrying the film around for 4 years, and that no studio had understood it. There were hopes that Mimic, a surprisingly soulful giant bug movie, which had been taken out of the director's control in post-production, might at least do well enough to help get Mephisto made. Later that year, there were rumors that Gary Oldman or Ewan McGregor were being considered for unspecified roles. Nothing happened, so Del Toro moved on to his tragic ghost story, The Devil's Backbone. While promoting this film in 2001, Del Toro was again asked about his next project. He said it was either going to be Mephisto, which he perhaps facetiously called a metaphor for his experiences in Hollywood, or something called An Honest Man, planned as a vehicle for Kronos star Federico Lupi. He would have played a meek office worker who murders all of his co-workers to preserve his own reputation as a good accountant. By then, the director was building up a long list of hopeful movie projects, including Hellboy, The Left Hand of Darkness, The List of Seven, The Wind in the Willows, even early versions of Mountains of Madness and Crimson Peak. Only a few of these would actually get made. Over time, instead of growing shorter, this list grew much longer. Mephisto's Bridge became one of many films Del Toro was continually developing. He explains in interviews that this has essentially become part of his career strategy. His work is so strange, elaborate, and difficult to finance that he tries to maintain a large and shifting roster of movie ideas at any given time, in order to increase his odds at finding backing. If not for one particular film, then maybe another. Mephisto came up again as a possible future production in 2003, when Del Toro was wrapping up the finished version of Hellboy. It had been almost 10 years since he wrote the script, and by now he'd begun thinking of doing a rewrite to update the story, citing similar Faustian themes in Fight Club that had apparently turned out to be too similar to his own. But it doesn't appear the rewrite was ever done. As Mephisto aged, instead of trying to keep it fresh and alive, Del Toro seems to have chosen to allow its passing. He soon began transplanting its ideas into his other films. In the original design for Spanky, he claims to have found the inspiration for the creatures of Hellboy, Hellboy himself, and later the Faun in Pan's Labyrinth. An especially large piece of Mephisto's bridge was later salvaged and inserted into Hellboy 2 in 2008. A character called the Angel of Death makes a prominent appearance in that film, and her wings conspicuously sport feathers with eyeballs. There don't appear to have been any updates on Mephisto since then, but the project still pops up on lists of unmade Guillermo del Toro movies people still want to see get made. Christopher Fowler, author of the script's original source novel, Spanky, was certainly one of them. He posted a blog entry in 2017 mentioning how his book inspired parts of Hellboy, and writing a bit about his disappointment over Mephisto being cancelled, even claiming that it did come very close to being made. Although there's a tone of regret to this post, Fowler says that Del Toro was very fair and kind to him about the way things turned out. The author sadly passed away in March of 2023, and the script, as far as we know, is still sitting on Del Toro's shelf, where it will probably remain indefinitely.